Have you ever wondered why we pay a professional to listen to us talk in a quiet, sterile room? It's a modern necessity that would have looked absolutely bizarre to our ancient ancestors. For most of human history, we didn't have clinical psychologists or scheduled 50-minute sessions. We had something more effective, the village fire, at the first why. We look for the hidden roots of our modern lives. To understand your fragmented brain, we must travel back 40,000 years. Imagine the world before the hearth. The moment the sun dipped below the horizon, the world became a landscape of pure, unadulterated terror. Humans were prey, and the darkness was a wall of silence. We huddled together, barely breathing, hoping the predators in the bushes wouldn't catch our scent. But when we learned to control fire, everything changed. It wasn't just for cooking. It was the first piece of psychological technology in human history. The light created a safe zone that pushed back the predators. This safety allowed our brains to switch out of survival mode for the first time. Anthropologists discovered a fascinating split in nearly every ancient conversation. They call it the difference between day talk and night talk. During the day, nearly 75% of talk was functional. It was all about logistics, finding water, tracking animals, or surviving the heat. Day talk is high stress and logical. But once the fire was lit, over 80% of talk shifted towards storytelling, myths, and deep social bonding. There is deep neurobiology behind this shift. Research shows that sitting by a flickering fire causes your blood pressure to drop significantly. It puts the mind into a hypnagogic state. This is a receptive bridge where the brain becomes highly open to deep connection and oxytocin. This trust-building hormone floods your entire system. The fire didn't just warm bodies. It chemically prepared the tribe to heal together. This is where we invented the world's first couch. A hunter nearly mauled that day would tell his story to the entire group. Today, we call this narrative therapy. By turning a terrifying event into a story with a structure, you move the memory out of the amygdala, since that region is purely reactive. Narrating the trauma allows the rational prefrontal cortex to take over and process the experience logically. The tribe acted as witnesses, providing total communal validation. This meant the burden of the trauma was shared by everyone, not just one person. We evolved in groups of about 150 people. This was a permanent support system that never closed its doors to those in need. Today, we've traded the village for nuclear families and solo apartments. We live in a support gap where loneliness is a public health epidemic. Because we lost that nightly circle, we professionalized connection. We pay for the secure attachment the way our ancestors received it for free nightly. A therapist is essentially a one-person village hired to listen. It's a vital tool, but it's an individual solution to a massive social problem. The strange ritual of therapy isn't a sign of weakness. It's a very real biological necessity in a world that has become fragmented and lonely. We are trying to reclaim our ancient fire circles in a modern office. But our ancestors knew that talking was only the first step. They understood that the mind and the body are not separate. While stories settled the spirit, they had other ways to handle physical stress. They knew that trauma isn't just a memory, it's a physical weight. If you've ever felt a knot in your stomach, you understand this. No amount of talking can fix some physical stress. To solve that, they used their entire bodies to discharge the heavy energy of the hunt. They understood the biological power of the shake. Next, we'll see why this physical release is the first step towards staying sane and whole. To see this in nature, look at what happens when a deer narrowly escapes a mountain lion. It doesn't just walk away. It stands there and vibrates its entire body for several minutes. Biologists call this the shake response. It is a vital physical discharge of survival adrenaline that prevents the nervous system from becoming permanently stuck in a state of fear. For our ancestors, trauma wasn't something you just sat with and thought about. It was a heavy biological charge that had to be shaken off through communal ritual and movement. Ancient cultures across the globe used hours-long trance dances to achieve this state. They would move until they reached a level of exhaustion that finally cleared the mental fog. Modern science proves this isn't just some old superstition. Our bodies literally keep a physical record of every stressor we encounter throughout our lives. If we don't move that heavy energy out of our system, it stays trapped in our muscles and nerves. This is why you feel physically stiff and exhausted after a day of mental stress. But there was a secret biological weapon to these rituals that we have almost entirely lost today. It is a phenomenon known as synchronized movement. When a group of humans moves in perfect unison, something incredible happens to their chemistry. Their heart rates begin to sync up, and their individual pain tolerance suddenly skyrockets. Experts call this collective effervescence. It is that electric, buzzing feeling of being part of something much larger than your own individual, fragile self. This shared rhythm acted as a massive social glue for the tribe. It made everyone feel like a single, invincible organism rather than a collection of scared individuals. Today, we might feel a tiny spark of this at a loud concert or a packed stadium. But for our ancestors, it was a weekly biological requirement for staying sane. Without this regular reset, the human mind starts to fracture under the pressure of life. Ancient people had a very specific name for this feeling: soul loss. They believed that during a terrifying event, a piece of your soul could actually break off and flee. This kept the core of the person safe from the unbearable pain. You might recognize this feeling today as dissociation. It is that foggy, detached sensation where you feel like you are watching your life from behind a thick glass wall. Modern therapy uses complex techniques like EMDR to bring those detached parts back. We call it reintegration and try to talk through the difficult memories very slowly. But in the past, the healer wouldn't just talk to you in a private room. They would host a soul retrieval ceremony where every member of the tribe participated. Your family and your neighbors would all witness your return to wholeness. They were the ones who literally called the pieces of your spirit back home to you. This created a powerful psychological map for the brain. It signaled to the nervous system that the danger was over and it was safe to be present again. We have replaced these communal explosions of energy with quiet, scheduled conversations. We try to think our way out of problems that are actually built into our bones. When you sit on a modern therapy couch, you are trying to do alone what used to take a whole village. You are managing a burden that was never meant for one person. The tribe knew that an isolated human is a vulnerable human. They used rhythm to stitch the social fabric back together after every tragedy or loss. This brings us to a massive problem with how we live our lives now. We have professionalized our connections and outsourced our basic empathy to paid experts. We have traded the firelight and the drums for a clinical office and an hourly copay. And that trade-off comes with a hidden cost we are only just starting to see. We are the first humans to try and heal in total privacy. We have turned a public survival necessity into a private, individualized luxury. Our ancestors didn't have to be strong because the group provided all the strength they needed. They were nodes in a massive, resilient emotional network. Now, we pay a professional just to feel truly heard for an hour a week. We are essentially buying back the village one session at a time. But how did we let that village disappear? And why did we trade a lifetime of support for a 50-minute window on a calendar? To find that answer, we have to look at how we shrunk our world down to the size of a single apartment, and why that isolation is actually the root of our modern pain. This shift began when we traded the campsite for the efficiency of the modern city. We went from living with 150 relatives to living behind locked doors with just a spouse, a roommate, or a pet. Anthropologists call this specific group size Dunbar's number. It represents the natural limit of people we can truly know and trust, and for thousands of years, it served as our primary emotional safety net. In that ancient circle, if you were grieving or anxious, you did not have to call a front desk to book an appointment. You had 150 pairs of eyes watching over you at all times. These people noticed the shift in your mood before you even had to say a word. Support was not something you scheduled. It was the air the tribe breathed together. But today, we live in what sociologists call the nuclear unit. We have shrunk our social world so much that when the weight of life gets too heavy, there is often no one left to help us carry it. This drastic shift is how we ended up facing a global loneliness epidemic. In 2023, the US, Surgeon General warned that being socially isolated is actually as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. Our brains are still biologically wired for the tribe, so they perceive isolation as a physical threat to our survival. Your nervous system stays on high alert because, in the wild, being alone meant you were defenseless. With the village gone, we've turned our social needs into a commercial service. We created a system where we pay a trained stranger to provide the unconditional support that used to be our birthright. Modern therapy has become a micro-community consisting of only 2 people. For 50 minutes, your therapist becomes your entire tribe, offering the secure attachment that the modern world fails to provide. While it is a brilliant and necessary clinical tool, we must recognize it as a massive compromise. We are trying to condense 40,000 years of communal bonding into a single hour on a Tuesday afternoon. Think about what we call the support gap. For 99% of human history, emotional regulation was a 24/7 process integrated into daily life, not a task you put on a digital calendar. In the old world, the burden of your trauma was held and shared by everyone sitting around that fire. Today, that same burden is managed individually, often behind a screen or in the quiet of a private office. We have moved from a goal of collective wholeness to a goal of individual symptom reduction. We are not just trying to heal anymore. We are trying to survive a lifestyle that our biology was never built for. So, does this mean modern therapy is the problem? Not at all. It is a vital and necessary bridge for a fragmented world, providing specialized care our ancestors could never have even imagined. However, the real secret to lasting mental health might lie in learning how to bridge these 2 worlds. We definitely need the clinical precision of modern science to navigate our complex lives. But we also need to build our own versions of those ancient fire circles. Healing works best when we move together, tell stories, and witness each other's major life transitions. The fundamental truth is that the human mind was never designed to heal in total isolation. We are deeply social creatures who require the rhythm and presence of the group to remain mentally grounded. If you feel lost or overwhelmed, it might not just be a chemical imbalance. It could be a community imbalance, a natural reaction to living in a world that asks you to be more independent than is healthy. Start looking for those rare spaces where you can be seen and heard without a clock ticking in the background. Reclaim the rituals that make us human. And never be afraid to let others share the weight of your story. If this deep dive into our ancient psychology gave you a new perspective on your own mind, make sure to subscribe. We explore the why behind the human experience every week on The First Why, joining our growing community in the comments, and let us know if you have a fire circle in your life today. Thanks for watching. And remember, you were never meant to carry the weight of the world all alone.